Hello Internet, my name is John Jags, and today we are taking a behind the scenes look on how I made this little Halo action figure toy commercial spec piece sort of thing. What we're going to be doing in this 3-part series is going over the shooting and locations for this gear and whatnot. Afterwards, in the next video, we'll be talking about the editing process of this little video that I made, and then the final piece of this series will be the visual effects, how I achieved some of the compositing for this Halo themed action figure video. So without further ado, let's dive right into the shooting and gear that I use for this video. Okay, so this video took place in the Grand Canyon National Park and my bedroom. So before we talk about gear, I need to mention the reference video for this. If you're familiar with Halo at all, you'll know that the Halo 3 trailer is pretty epic, and it looks like this. Now, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but you kind of get the idea. You got these cool, sweeping, wide shots of this big, giant hole in the ground. So I wanted to go to the Grand Canyon, which is a big hole in the ground, and sort of emulate this look and feel. So I was thinking to myself, what is the gear and lenses that I need to make sure I can get this look? So I use a Sony mirrorless camera, the Sony A9, because it's a small body, full frame camera. With that, I used a 16 to 35 millimeter lens, and the reason why I used a zoom lens here is because I wanted to have a lot of different focal ranges on site when I'm shooting at sunset, so I'm not wasting time switching between lenses. So for a video like this, I would really recommend a zoom lens if you're shooting around sunset. If you look at the reference, they shoot around sunrise or sunset, so I wanted to make sure I emulated that look. Now, the next thing I brought was my 90 millimeter macro lens, and that lens was primarily for the close-up detail macro shots. And what's really cool about the compression of this lens, the focal length creates this cool perspective so that when you have the little action figure, he fills up the entire frame. He looks way bigger than he actually is. And if you look at the reference video, then you'll see that there's a bunch of close-up shots, and most lenses will have a minimum focus distance. So like my 16 to 35 millimeter, if I got as close to the lens as I wanted to, come on, focus. You know, it might not even focus because, oh, there we go. If I get super close, it's not gonna focus. So it's like somewhere around here. And then if I pull back, it'll come back here. So the minimum focus distance on this lens is actually pretty long. So using the 90 millimeter macro lens allowed me to get those close-up detail shots that I wanted to fill up the frame. Now, if you look at the reference video one more time, you'll see these very wide, broad, sweeping camera movements. So I needed to find a way to achieve that. And the way I did that was obviously with some sort of camera stabilization. I could have used a drone, but because the figure is so small, a gimbal was going to be that much better. Now, I should also mention that you can't use a drone in national parks, so I wanted to make sure I abided by the rules of the US National Park Service and not use a drone. So we used the DJI Ronin S gimbal for the wide shots. So anything that was a wide angle lens, it was on my Ronin S gimbal. And then my close-up detail shots that had some camera movement, we used the Edelkrone slider. And it's just like this little slider about like yay big, and it's just super powerful, and you can get some really cool cinematic movements without having a giant slider system with multiple tripods. The other gear I brought included just general camera accessories, a tripod. I'm using the Peak Design travel tripod because I wanted to travel small, travel light, especially around the Grand Canyon. And I'm using the Peter McKinnon 2 to 5 stop ND filter. Now, one thing I should mention before we talk about locations is that if you're shooting products like this and you know that you're going to be doing some sort of visual effects or compositing at the end of the day, make sure you shoot at a closed down f-stop. Bring that number higher on your camera, and the reason why you do that is it will put your depth of field to be much deeper, and when you have more things in focus, it is much easier to cut things out and roto brush things in post. If you have a really shallow depth of field and your subject has really soft edges around it, it'll make it so much harder to roto brush that out. So my biggest tip for shooting any content like this, if you're going to be doing visual effects, is make sure you shoot at a closed down f-stop so you can get those cutouts that you want. Now, as far as location, we shot this in the Grand Canyon National Park. The two places that we shot at were Navajo Point. So we're gonna go right over here with a little friend. And we chose Navajo Point because I wanted to make sure that where I was shooting, there wasn't a whole lot of like human things in the background, like buildings or rails or whatever else. So I wanted to make sure I had a location that could get kind of close to a more barren environment, kind of like the reference video. And then the other place that we shot at was the South Rim Visitor Center. And what was cool about that is even though there was some buildings there, I used it for a lot of the cool macro shots. And there was one spot that we found that was really cool because it was sort of like, I guess, a peninsula sticking out over the cliff, so we actually didn't see all that much human things. So as far as location goes, I just want to make sure that I found something that felt similar to the original Halo video, but also safe and basically as close to where I could get it to the reference video as possible. Now, obviously we have some other shots where there's some more compositing and you don't see the figure in a sort of landscape background. That was just shot in my bedroom, and basically I just had the figure on my Edelkrone slider turntable, and what that allowed me to do is have the figure on a blue screen because the sky is green, and if you shot a green figure on a green screen, it's not going to work, or it's not going to be fun to make that work. So I shot this guy on a blue screen, and I used my DJI Ronin S with the joystick function, and I just slowed that down so that I can get those really soft cinematic movements just to showcase the figure. Because yeah, the trailer was cool, but really it was about how cool this action figure is. So as far as locations go, it was really 3 locations. We could have done 2, just once at the Grand Canyon and once in my room, but one of the things we did run into is timing. Timing just did not work out for me, so the night we were planning on shooting, it was overcast, so I didn't get that really harsh light that I wanted in the original reference video. So in the morning, we woke up super early to be there for sunrise and tried to get a couple more shots. But overall, I feel really good about how the shoot went. Now, the editing is a whole separate story, and we're gonna talk about that in the next video. But I hope you enjoyed this shooting sort of breakdown of this little toy commercial. The next video, we'll talk more about the specifics of the editing, the shots, and the other fun stuff that went into it. If you learned something about just my workflow when it comes to shooting a little video like this, let me know. And until next time, my name is John Jagsney, and I will see you beautiful people in that next video. Bye! Where's my... Found it! Bye, I'll see you next time.